Welcome back, brothers and sisters and fellow navigators of the corporate jungle. In our first message, we embarked on a journey to understand the enigmatic and often disruptive presence of workplace psychopaths, the proverbial snakes in suits. We met Brother Tom, the charming new hire whose superficial allure masked a trail of missed deadlines and blame shifting. And we delved into the characteristics of workplace psychopaths. We debunked some myths and highlighted the profound impact that these individuals can have on team morale and company culture. In the first message, our takeaways were: you need to stay observant. Keep an eye on inconsistencies between words and actions. Encourage open dialogue and open communication. Foster an environment where verifying information is safe and encouraged. If you're armed with this foundational knowledge, we're now ready to sharpen our senses even further. And today, we'll learn how to spot the scales beneath the suits and differentiate between merely difficult coworkers and those who pose a genuine threat to the workplace harmony. Meet Linda. Now on paper, she's the epitome of a stellar employee. She is articulate, she is proactive, and she is always ready with a smile. She volunteers for every high-profile project and seems to have an uncanny ability to impress upper management. However, when deadlines loom or challenges arise, Linda is as elusive as a mirage in a desert. Emails go unanswered, her desk is perpetually vacant, and her contributions are minimal at best. Yet, when success is achieved, Linda is front and center, accepting accolades and often taking credit for the team's hard work. Does this sound familiar? Maybe it's someone you know, maybe it's a friend of a friend. Because it's definitely not you, right? You wouldn't be a snake in suits like this, right? Here are some red flags to watch for. When identifying a workplace psychopath, it isn't about casting unwarranted suspicion, because that's not good for you. But rather, it's about recognizing consistent patterns of harmful behaviors. Jim Rohn, a great speaker, said, "Success leaves clues." If a certain person became successful, there are certain things and patterns that they were doing that led them to be successful. It is also the same with a psychopath. You need to not look at isolated incidents, but you need to look at consistent behaviors that point to harmful behavior. The first red flag is consistent patterns of manipulation and deceit. There is selective truth-telling. Now, Linda would often share information that benefits her while withholding crucial details from others. Sound familiar? She'll pick strategic alliances. She befriends influential colleagues to shield herself from scrutiny. There is feigning of competence, which is very big. It takes on tasks beyond her capability, relying on others to pick up the slack. The second red flag is a lack of empathy and refusal to accept responsibility. There is the deflecting the blame. When projects falter, Linda is quick to point fingers at team members or external factors. She would have a dismissive attitude. She downplays others' concerns or challenges, labeling them as overreactions. There is the emotional damage. No, I'm joking. There's the emotional detachment. She would show little or no remorse when her actions negatively impact others. Does it sound familiar? Maybe it's you. Maybe it's a friend. Maybe it's a friend of a friend. Oh, it's definitely not you, right? You wouldn't be a person who manipulates people, deceives people, has a lack of empathy, or refuses to accept responsibility, right? Let's talk about the blame game that the snakes in suits always find themselves in. Now, workplace psychopaths are adept to manipulating situations to their advantage, often at the expense of others, which is the definition of evil, by the way. Now, let's look at this even further. Understanding the tactics used to shift blame and sow discord. Gaslighting. Now, Linda might insist that she was never informed about a meeting or a deadline, making others question their own memory. A mentor of mine called this selective amnesia. They gaslight you into believing that you didn't send them the communication or send them the email, or that they didn't agree to something that you know for a fact that they agreed to, but then they gaslight you into thinking that you didn't do it. Such evil. Divide and conquer. Now, they would spread rumors or gossip that pit team members one against another, and then playing victim, portraying herself as overwhelmed or unfairly targeted when held accountable to her actions. Your Lord help us. And then we need to learn recognizing gaslighting and other manipulative behaviors. There is the denial of facts. Even when presented with evidence, Linda will deny responsibility. Have you ever been in a meeting with somebody and you had every piece of evidence, the memo, the Excel spreadsheet, the data, the bar graphs, the charts, the date and timestamp to the day, minute, hour, second, millisecond, with their signature right there, and then they would still deny that they ever made the decision? Isn't that lekker? Of course, maybe it's a friend or a friend of a friend or a friend of a friend's friend, but it's never you, right? They will create confusion. Now, they will provide contradictory information that creates uncertainty, because a snake in a suit can never thrive in a situation where there is certainty and clarity of facts. They always need some ambiguity and uncertainty, and if they see certainty, they will create uncertainty so that they can make themselves significant and carry on with their evil agenda. Maybe evil is strong, but for lack of a better term, let's call it evil. They would also shift the narratives. They would alter the story based on the audience to maintain the facade. This has never happened to you, right? Now let's learn about differentiating difficult from dangerous. Now, not every challenging coworker is a psychopath. Let's be very clear on that. Some people are challenging, but they have their principles and they are goal-orientated, aligned with the company's strategic objectives. And if you get in the way of the strategic objectives, they may be difficult, but be sure that not every challenging coworker is a psychopath. It is crucial to distinguish between someone who's merely difficult and someone whose behavior is toxic. Understand intent and impact. Now, difficult coworkers may be uncooperative or abrasive but lack malicious intent. Then they're probably adversaries because the goal that you're trying to get to is not aligned with the goal that they are aiming to get towards, but they don't have malicious intent to destroy you or their environment. Now, psychopaths are very different. They engage in calculated actions. Listen to what I just said, the C word. They engage in calculated actions designed to manipulate and harm others for personal gain. Let's look at the key distinctions in behavior and intent. Accountability. Difficult coworkers might admit mistakes when confronted. Psychopaths never admit to mistakes because they are never wrong. Consistency. Psychopathic behavior is persistent and pervasive across different situations and people. From Monday to Friday, from HR to marketing, they are still psychopaths. They are consistent in their psychopathic behavior. Also, they, like, empathy is not a thing for them, eh? It's not it for them, hey? Yeah, no, it's the empathy, it's just not for them. Difficult individuals may show empathy in certain contexts, right? For example, if they hurt your feelings and they didn't intend to, they will say sorry. I'm a psychopath, lava. They don't. They typically have no empathy whatsoever. Have you been in a situation with a psychopath like that? Not you. Maybe a friend or a friend of a friend or a colleague or a colleague's colleague, but it's never you, right? What are some actionable learnings that we can think about? Now, recognizing these red flags is only half the battle. It's only half the step to winning the war. The next step is implementing strategies to protect yourself and maintain a healthy work environment. Now, Cat Williams is one of my favorite comedians, and at the beginning of 2024, he went on Club Shay Shay, did an interview, the most watched video podcast in YouTube history at the time of recording, and he went and exposed many comedians who were found out to be liars and basically psychopaths themselves. They're basically snakes in suits themselves. And one of the key things that came from the aftermath of that, you should check it out. It's absolutely amazing. It's absolutely amazing. Maybe some cross language, but it was absolutely amazing. 2.5 hour, 3 hour stand-up session while sitting down. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Many people tuned into that because they liked the truth. And the important thing that came out post that interview was that Cat Williams had the R word for everything that he was talking about. And that is the receipts. What receipts is documented evidence in written, audio, or video format of what he was saying. He would say a fact, and then there would be receipts to what he was saying, which is credibility to what he was saying. Many people that I've coached and mentored made the mistake. Even myself, when I was young and naive and I didn't believe my dad when he said that there are psychopaths at work, I did not keep documented evidence and receipts of the work that I was doing and every interaction that I had with key stakeholders so that we could go back and refer. But I didn't do that. Keep a record of interactions and communications. Keep your receipts. Because if you buy something at a store, you get given a slip so that you can go back if you want to return it and say, here is my receipt, proof of evidence that you purchased it. In the corporate context and even in the entrepreneurial and business context especially, you need to keep your receipts. Let's move on with it. Document everything. Save emails, take detailed notes during meetings, keep recordings of verbal conversations so that when you are in another meeting and this psychopath, and it's not you, maybe it's a colleague of a colleague of a colleague, a friend of a friend of a friend, denies what you agreed on, you can say, according to my receipts on this day and this time and this environment, you said this is what you agreed to. And they cannot go back on that because it's documented. They can feign ignorance, but you say, hey, here are the receipts. Please do that for yourselves. And it's also fosters better collaboration because some people are not psychopaths, they just tend to forget. Now, move on. Use formal channels. These handshake agreements, I don't know if you've ever watched The Founder with Michael Keaton about Ray Kroc and how he, basically the movie was how the Kroc brothers got worked out of their own agreement. There was a gentleman's handshake on a deal that was supposed to be made. It was never upheld because it was not a formal channel. Go watch that movie. Great entrepreneurial movie. Now, whenever possible, communicate through official platforms that provide time-stamped records. Emails, There are Teams messages, but like emails is where you go to verify and ratify decisions that you've made. Then also be specific. Note the date, note the time, specify the details and the agenda and a clear timeline of events. As a program delivery professional, when you close off a program and initiative, you go and you keep a repository of receipts of every single agreement, every single sign of document, every single regulatory piece of information that may be needed in case you are audited, just to say, hey, here's the receipt, this is what we agreed on, what you won't do. Please do that. And do it from a place of being diligent in the work that you're doing, because we tend to forget things as the work goes on. But when you are dealing with Lama Psychopath Laba, it's not you, maybe it's a friend of a friend of a friend, you've got receipts. Now, the other thing that we can do is to trust your instincts when something is off. We need to be able to trust our guts. Acknowledge your feeling. If interactions with Linda's not you, maybe it's a friend of a friend of a friend, it's definitely not you, leave you feeling confused or even doubting yourself, please don't dismiss those feelings. Also seek corroboration. Now discuss your experience with trusted colleagues, not other snakes in suits, trusted colleagues, to see if they've noticed similar patterns, because patterns are duplicated across multiple people and multiple organizations. And if you are noticing consistent patterns, odds are you are seeing it and other people are seeing it as well. Also, please avoid isolation. Psychopaths often try to isolate their targets. Staying connected with your team can counteract this. There is strength in numbers. Think of, spaghetti, uncooked spaghetti strand. How easy is it to break one? Very easy. To break two, a bit more difficult. To break 3, 4, 5, a lot more difficult. To break 100 of them is very difficult. Now, if you isolate yourself, you're very easily broken at that one strand of spaghetti, uncooked spaghetti. But if you are in a community of people trusted around you, it's very hard to break you. DIY. Don't isolate yourself. Now, here are some practical strategies that we can use. Establish clear communication, no ambiguity. Confirm agreements in writing. Get your receipts. No handshake agreements like the founder from Ray Kroc. Like Ray Kroc from the founder. After verbal discussions, send a follow-up email summarizing the key points and action items. Please. Clarify expectations. Ensure roles and responsibilities are explicitly defined to minimize your ambiguity. Please. Also set professional boundaries. Limit personal information sharing. Be cautious about revealing personal details that can be manipulated. There's a reason your personal life is called your personal life. Stay focused on the facts, right? In discussions, steer the conversation toward objective information rather than emotions. Stick to the facts. Stick to the data. Play the ball, not the person. Please. Now, understand the broader impact of identifying these snakes in suits. Recognizing and addressing psychopathic behavior isn't just about personal well-being. It's about safeguarding the entire organization. It's about protecting team dynamics. It is about preventing toxic culture. Now, unchecked, such behavior can erode trust and collaboration within the team. It's all about retaining your talent. A healthy work environment reduces turnover and retains high-performing employees, which is what the organization wants. Why? And this is why it is important to identify these snakes in suits, these psychopaths at work, help them change their behavior, babahambi. Legally, of course. Now, we also need to understand that identifying these snakes in suits leads us to maintaining organizational integrity. It leads to reputation management. Now, a company that's known for addressing internal issues proactively is far more attractive to clients and prospective employees. I've heard of some investors who absolutely refuse to touch an organization that is riddled with snakes in suits. Just saying. If you're going to build your organization and scale it, lama snakes and suits lava. Be aware. Then it leads to operational efficiency if you deal with snakes and suits. Now, teams that are free from manipulation are more productive and innovative. Facts, bar none. Now, spotting the scales beneath the polished exterior is essential for anyone navigating the corporate landscape. Now, by recognizing the red flags that are exhibited by individuals like Linda, we can take proactive steps to protect ourselves and our teams. Remember, please, brothers and sisters, when dealing with the snakes in suits, maybe it's a friend or a friend of a friend of a friend or a colleague or a colleague's colleague, it's never you, right? Document interactions. Keep the receipts. Keeping records provides a factual basis for any necessary actions. Trust your instincts. Your intuition is a powerful tool. Do not underestimate it. I wish I listened to my dad all those years ago, but alas. In our next message, charming but harmful, dealing with the snake as an employee. Lord help us all. We'll explore strategies for managing relationships with workplace psychopaths. We'll share stories of employees, fictional of course, who successfully navigated these challenges with professionalism and resilience. And just as a side note, all the names and scenarios that I use are fictitious. The scenarios are real. Universally, they're real. But the names are just generalized names because I personally don't know a Linda. Personally, I don't know one. I don't know a Tom. The only Tom I know is Tom and Jerry. That's all I know. But all these names are used for illustrative purposes. I just want you to know that. Now, awareness is the very first line of defense against workplace psychopaths. You cannot deal with a person, personality, or psychopath that you do not know. The Usual Suspects is one of my favorite movies, with Kevin Spacey before all the scandals. There's a line that he says there. The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was to convince the world he didn't exist. How can you fight a devil that you don't know? And how can you deal with a workplace psychopath that you do not know? By staying vigilant and supporting one another, we can cultivate a work environment where integrity and collaboration thrive, and where snakes in suits find no refuge. Stay tuned for more insights, stories, and actionable advice as we continue our journey through the corporate jungle.